for the right personality, like that's the best part of the whole thing.
Yes.
I'm 25 years in. I have so much history and baggage that's weighing me down. But if I could get in. So let's talk about the story behind the story. The women's basketball, the NCAA women's basketball, the Huskies, UConn, they have built a dynasty. They're just crushing it. They've got so many national championships. And this ties into two of the topics we're talking about today. We're going to talk about recruitment, hiring, attracting talent, like all this kind of stuff. Dave's in this world. Everybody's in this world. And then we're going to talk about some valuations and exit strategies. Like you can't sell something that doesn't have employees. You can't sell something that doesn't have a structure to it. So I shared a post. What I did was I went on LinkedIn. I grabbed a bunch of posts that were clearly recruitment-based posts. I threw them into ChatGPT. I said, hey, process this, read this, tell me what you see as the emotional triggers and, you know, the feelings behind it. I can remember back in the early 2000s, I never did the normal job post. I never did, we're looking for a physical therapist, highly motivated, multitasker, blah, 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 blah. My job posts were always like long form copy, sales letter, written content. It was, hey, this is what we do. This is why we do it. This is why it's so important to us. This is the culture of the team. These are the people who do well on our team. And it resonated with, you know, great people. Now, you want to pull up what Joey Allbritton said. Joey had a post recently. We'll get it on the screen. Joey said, it's not your job as the owner to make your employees happy. Only they can make themselves happy. All we can do is help facilitate their growth, put them in an environment that trends toward a better chance of happiness. So, Jimmy, off the top of your head, what are you thinking?
Yeah, as soon as you get this thought in your head, and not even like, we'll go even more. I agree with Joey, and I go even bigger. You can't make anybody else happy. You can't. It either comes from within. Now you can piss people off. You can cut them off in traffic, right? But isn't it crazy? Like some people, like Marcus Aurelius and the Stoics, they aren't bothered by that because they realize it's not about me. It's about that person. That person's a jerk. It's not about me. So I think as soon as you start to realize that, two things, like also I'll tie two ideas together. I feel like you and Dave understand what being a Gino Auriemma, the head coach of UConn's women's basketball, the Dynasty, understood. You're not looking for someone to come in and be there for 20 years. That person's not great. Gino understands. I mean, now at this point, he's getting, you know, a couple of years out of some players who have some marketability, right? Maybe some NIL money will keep them in college a little bit longer for the WNBA anyway. But your job is to get the most out of that person and put themselves in a situation where they can make themselves happy or they can make themselves successful, knowing that the right people are probably going to graduate and they're probably going to leave. So as soon as you wrap your head around, you can't actually make anybody ever happy. All you can do is facilitate their growth, put them in a good situation. I think you move the goalpost actually closer because happy is so far away. It's a pot of gold at the end of an invisible rainbow. Doesn't exist.
Dave?
One, first of all, Joey Allbritton, friend of the Dave Kittle Show, friend of the pod, friend of all of us, colleague. First of all, he posts stuff like this so that people have some reaction. No different than my post or tweet about me flexing with my guns out and saying whatever it was, like if you want to charge $250 to $400 per visit as a physical therapist, you need to be fit and whatever I forget, whatever the tweet was. First of all, he posts this stuff on purpose. Genius, because we're actually talking about it, and then other people share behind the scenes and they talk about it. So first of all, that's learning point number one, is learn from Joey, learn from Robbie. But Joey posts more polarizing stuff. You guys would agree, right? Than Robbie. Robbie posts very it's always nice and very, very professional. Nothing can ever get distorted. And then Joey posts stuff that's kind of it's going to be, you got to jump on the fence. You got to go one way or the other on the fence. You can't be on the fence. You got to be one side or the other. Correct? So that's point number one. Number two, is it our job to make our employees happy? Well, it doesn't matter how we define it, because it is your responsibility to have a great team and exude your core values. I wrote down some notes about what a CEO should be doing and their main roles. And one thing is exuding and living and reinforcing your core values. So a CEO can't say things like, we have one of our core values is integrity, and then they're billing Medicare 6 patients per hour, all with the one-on-one treatment codes, right? Which would be billing healthcare, Medicare fraud. So you can't say that our core values are integrity, and that's one of our core values, but then you don't have integrity with your actual billing and coding and the ethics of billing. So I don't know, like, I kind of don't care. Like, is it important to have our employees, like, that's our job to make them happy? We have to set the table for the team, the vision, the core values. There's other components of a CEO, like capital allocation. Like, we're going to put money to a new clinic. We're going to put money into Google ads. We're going to put money into Facebook ads, a new campaign for hiring and recruiting. There's so many roles and responsibilities of a CEO. You need to set the tone and the core, the culture and morale, and ensure that morale is great. And if not, you need to be addressing it, having team meetings, having one-on-one meetings. So I think I kind of actually disagree with Joey. And that's the brilliance of his post, is we're talking about it, and I got to jump to one side of the fence or the other. If you want to keep your people longer than a month or two, it kind of is your responsibility to ensure that and maybe they're not the right person. Maybe it's the wrong person. Maybe it's the wrong person on the bus. You want to get the right person on the bus, which the bus meaning, Jim Collins, your business. I think we can't fully make the employee happy, but we are trying to make sure that they are on the same page with us. And I think it's somewhat our responsibility to reinforce that.
Yeah, I'm going to take it even deeper. Not only can I not make I can't make a patient happy. I can't make an employee happy. I teach my kids, you can't make your significant other happy. Like, whoever that person is, if you realize you're trying to make them happy, get the heck out, run, like, find the exit as fast as possible. This is a lesson I learned decades ago. And it's one of those things where I want to bring happy people into my world, people that are already happy, whether you have nothing, whether you have everything. I've got so many acquaintances that are just so ridiculously fortunate and still unhappy. Now, there are those people, and I recognize people that are happy being unhappy. They want to be unhappy. They want to be angry. They want to be a dark cloud. That makes them feel good.
Yeah.
I acknowledge that. That's fine. But yeah, no way, no how. There's no chance I am going to build a business designed to try and make an employee happy. The employee has to be happy coming in. Then we have the foundation to move forward as a team. Talking about that, since Dave brought it up, let's talk about the role of the CEO. So many of the people that are going to be watching this, listening to this, they do everything. They're the CEO. They're the clinician. They're the marketer. They're the account keeper. But in a real business, there's a real CEO. And we hear, especially among the profession, CEOs being vilified for making so much money when the employed line worker is making a fraction of what the CEO makes. I think we should address this. Why does the CEO make millions in some companies when the person actually building the widget is making, just barely enough to survive? Jimmy, what are you thinking about that?
Yeah, role of CEO. I want to go back to coaching. I know it's an analogy, and I don't know if it's a straight one, but it's good enough for me. Going back to a coach, and I think Coach Herb Brooks from the 1980 U.S. Olympic hockey team was a good example of a coach, but he was also like the CEO of a general manager. He didn't pick, famously, if you don't know history, right? He picked a bunch of college athletes, and he left off some top stars. So a lot of people were like, I can't believe, he's like, I have to pick the team. So his job wasn't picking the best players. It was picking the players that would play best together. And he realized if he had somebody who was great, but they had a shitty attitude, or they weren't the glue guy, or they were going to disrupt 4 other players, their net value was lower. So he looked at himself as like, my job is to win the game. I win the game with a team, not with a player. How do I put those players together? And famously, he took crap for it. They were like, you're picking the wrong players. Now, of course, those people put their foot in their mouth when they beat the Russians and, went on to the gold medal game to eventually, do you believe in miracles? So I think the role of a CEO is to create the environment. I know people like the pyramid where the CEO's at the top, but ironically, I think the CEO actually is there to support set the environment, set the tone. How come we're not doing this faster? Well, we don't have these resources, that says the person on the front lines. Then get them the resources. If that were to have to go all the way up the pyramid, it takes too long, right? So it's your job to make your boss happy. I think it's your job to make your boss look good, right? If your job is to make your boss look good, but I think the CEO needs to be on the bottom. It's his job to make the people on the front lines look good, because that's where the sausage is packed.
Can you re-ask the question just so I can? What's the actual role of a CEO?
Yeah, what's the role of the CEO? Like, why are they making exponentially more money than somebody on the front lines? I think that's what people really want to hear. What are your thoughts?
100x.
100x. Okay. I have a quick story from one of my mentors, Ed Mearsh. Ed Mearsh has bought and sold a ton of physical therapy businesses over the last 30, 40 years. He has, and I'm going to probably butcher it a little bit. I can't remember the exact story. I wish we could have him on. Ed, if you're probably not watching, but if you're watching, we got to have you on here.
Hey, this show spreads. It gets places.
Yeah, we want you to come on here. Ed most recently raised a whole bunch of private equity money. This is all public, and raised at least 50-something million, and then bought up a bunch of clinics, rebranded them all to Motion PT. 7 or something years later, sold them to Confluent, and the deal is on the internet publicly as $250 million deal. Years ago, he sold a portfolio of companies to either Physiotherapy Associates or Select Medical Novacare. An employee of the company that was a driver that was driving patients to and from an outpatient physical therapy office of the company stops Ed Mearsh, and he says, Ed, I was looking through the, whatever the public financial documents are, because I think it was Select Medical Novacare. And the driver knew Ed's approximate salary, and he was like a senior vice president, or he was like a high level executive. And the driver said, I'm making whatever per hour. And I was looking through the, the financial documents, and I saw that your salary was whatever at the time. It was probably like Jimmy just said, like 100x, right? And the driver was like, can I get a raise? Like, see, you're making all this money and I don't understand it. Like, you're making this crazy amount of money and I'm just doing this. And Ed, he said it way better than I'm going to say it, but he basically was like, we love you. You're great. We get great responses. All the patients love you, Mr. or Mrs. Driver, whoever that was. You're doing a great job with driving everyone safely and obeying traffic laws and all that type of stuff, making sure that, seatbelts are buckled and all that type of stuff. But he said, myself as a senior vice president or COO or CEO or whatever, I'm delivering XYZ level of value to the entire organization. Like, respectfully, if you don't come in today, there's 10 people that don't come into the clinic, and those 10 people would be, $800 of revenue or whatever, right? $1,000 of revenue. But if Ed doesn't come into the office today, the level of missed value could be 100x just for that day. It could have been a strategic meeting. It could have been a board meeting. It could have been an investor pitch. It could have been they're acquiring a new practice. It could have been whatever it is. And it's a higher level value job and components. I don't know if that makes any sense. I don't know if that's totally clear, but I heard him say that as a nice, respectful way to reply to a lower level employee about the difference in actual value that they're delivering for that role that they've agreed to do versus a higher level role that is like culture, capital allocation, value, strategic planning, like really big things that actually moves the needle in the organization.
Yeah. What do you, this goes back to, and I share this and I always get persecuted for it. Are we being paid for the job or the outcome, or are we being paid for our personal value? You always hear therapists say, know your worth. It's never about your worth. It's about the worth of the job you're delivering to the customer. A rotator cuff repair, 12-week rehab program for my grandmother who loves gardening is worth less to her than it would be to somebody who's going to, professional sports. So we have to make that distinction. And the job of the CEO, from my perspective, like you said, is to guide the organization, to get buy-in, to lead the culture. CEOs are ultimately a politician. That's what it is. The CEO, they're the president of the company. They're the politician. They have to shake hands and kiss babies, make everybody excited about what's going on. They're partly entertainers, partly, socializer. That's what they're getting paid for. And they're getting paid the value of driving that organization. They're not necessarily any smarter. They're not necessarily any harder working. They don't have any of those other attributes that we like to tie value to. They just happen to be in the position, in the role that has more value than the role that I accepted when I took a job as, exercise tech.
Right.
Jimmy, what are you thinking?
I think a problem that I fell for too was, I'll use my own experience because that's all I got. When I started in radio, I was like, hey, listen, like I'm working really hard. I was the weekend overnight guy. Next thing you know, I'm, moving up and getting promoted. I'm looking at the general manager who's like the CEO of the building that I worked in. And I think I realized I realized too late, like I needed to climb higher to be able to demand those things. Cause that guy had no idea who I was. He's like, who the hell is this guy making I was 2001. I was making $15,000 a year with a college degree, working 6 days a week, but I needed to impact more. Here's the thing. The way I did that is I left. I had to. There was no way to climb at that particular place, right? I'm not saying this is the only way, but you have to understand your value. So I could have just like muttered under my breath or complained to my coworkers. I looked at the situation. I gave them some time. I was like, can you explain to me how I've been promoted 4 times in 6 months or 8 months. And I wasn't really given a raise at all. And they were essentially like, well,
they
need to do a different job. What's that?
They tricked you. You thought
I actually lost money because I was the night guy and I was substitute teaching at my local high school during the day. But then I got promoted to days, but didn't get a raise. So I was losing $80 a day because I wasn't subbing anymore. I had to leave. I had to walk away and say that I'm out. So the only way to do that was to actually know my worth, but put my money where my mouth was and find a place that actually valued me. And I did that.
So Will Boyd shared a great comment. He said, I think a big factor is the level of stress and responsibility you're comfortable living with. I thought managing a caseload was tough. Now managing 10 people's livelihoods is another ball game. And it's true. Go ahead.
So before Will Boyd, thank you, Will, for the comment. But when this question of like, is a CEO worth 100x more than their employee salaries, Will touch on it a little bit. Stress and their livelihood of other individuals, that's risk. Ed Mearsh had most likely, I don't know specifically, but I'm sure he has personally guaranteed previously when he was buying and selling, especially buying and raising capital and all that, I'm sure he has personally guaranteed millions of dollars. Meaning if he defaulted, if, he embezzled money, whatever, if some stuff happened, he would have been on the hook at some point in his career for millions of dollars. Now, the driver of that other location, when he, bought that outpatient office and the driver is driving individuals to and from that office, that individual accepted that role. And there is basically no financial risk. There is no actual risk that's going to keep that driver up at night. Versus what Will said, which is, and I 100% agree, which is you're having the understanding and the responsibility of the livelihood of tens or thousands or hundreds of employees, and that risk you're accepting as a CEO. That's another reason why they're paid 100x more than a hourly or entry level employee.
Yeah, different skill set too. Like having the skill set of a CEO is different than even a manager. Like the CEO is a manager, right? You would say it's a manager of managers of managers. It is a different skill set. It's just a different game. You're playing a different game, and that game, a 1 degree change on that level can be monumentally great or horrible. Like 1 degree over that scale. The scale is just bigger. I think it's different and bigger. It's bigger and different. Yeah, it's different.
The other element here is, you have to be comfortable being the villain, being the bad guy. You have to be comfortable making the decisions. One of my boys was watching someone on YouTube the other day, and they were put in a simulation of being president and a nuclear war starts and what are the decisions you're going to make. And so we're watching this reenactment, and this person as president of the United States has to make a decision. Do I launch this attack that's going to kill 100 million? Do I launch this attack that's going to kill 20 million? Like every one of us that's in a role of leadership, we are making decisions that's affecting everybody. And we have to both be comfortable making a decision that negatively impacts people, but maybe it negatively impacts them less than other potential decisions. And at the end of the day, I think generally speaking, we're always going to be viewed as the villain no matter what. The people that are being influenced by the decision, it takes a big person to acknowledge that was a hard choice. I'm glad Tony made that choice, even though it negatively affected me. And so we have to be emotionally mature enough to acknowledge this is my job, this is what I'm doing, and I'm going to do it to the best of my ability.
You either die a hero or live long enough to become the villain. Everything goes back to Batman. That's a Batman line, right? That's the idea.
So with this, going back full circle, Jimmy's been sharing some stuff about recruitment, attracting, team players, attracting the best person. I always think of the movie Moneyball and how it's not about hiring the most expensive. It's not hiring all stars. Like you need to hire for the role. Sometimes you need followers. Sometimes you need leaders. Sometimes you need people that work in a cohesive group. What has been your motivation lately, Jimmy, for sharing stuff about recruiting and attracting the right therapists?
I don't think I understood. Well, two reasons. Number one, and I don't know if this is just part of what I'm seeing because it's what I'm clicking, right? We are what we start to read what we're searching for, but I'm noticing a lot more solopreneurs, or what I think someone else said, 0.5 to 1.5 FTE organizations, right? So it's like a side gig, but big enough to support somebody, or 1.5 people. And you're seeing this problem crop up in our profession. That's always been a problem, but maybe I just wasn't paying attention to it. Like the big issue is actually finding people to work in your organization. I just don't think it was on my radar. I didn't think it was an issue because I wasn't in that position to talk to those people. And now I am. And I think a lot of times they're doing it wrong, right? I mean, I shared a reel the other day. I've been sharing a lot. I'm bored. I'm stuck in the house. It's still not nice out. So I'm sharing a lot of videos about how you keep talking about you, and it falls on deaf ears. And when you talk about someone else and what they're looking for, people pay a lot more attention. And you get the right people. I mean, I shared this before, is we had an ad for a weekend radio DJ, essentially like on call, minimum wage, nights, weekends, and holidays. You don't get any free stuff. I made the world's worst job description, right? I probably got a way less number of applicants, but they were the right applicants because I needed somebody who's going to get a spoon and eat a pile of crap to get the job that they wanted. I was like, you want to do this full time? You got to crawl through a mile of crap. And it was an overly honest, even tongue-in-cheek job application that we put out there. But we got the right people to apply. And I think big organizations miss this. Like, go to any of the large organizations and go to their career page and just look at their job descriptions. What do they say? They're mayonnaise. They are warm mayonnaise, and they say nothing and they don't do anything. And then what do? We put our resume through it, and an AI reads it, and it just finds more mayonnaise. Mayonnaise begets mayonnaise begets mayonnaise. I think the ones that succeed do it well. I mean, look at Rehab to Perform and Josh Funk. Their entire social media is actually mostly not aimed at patients. It's like, dude, do you want to work somewhere, a fast-paced, environment? You know who that kicks out? People who don't like fast-paced environment. Good. We don't want you here. Like, in a good way. You're not going to fit in here because that's not what we do. Their whole social media on Instagram, I'd say 90+% of it is to show you, not tell you, who they're looking for, what we are. As Seth Godin would say, people like us do things like this. So I think I've been talking a lot more about it because I see it a lot.
Dave, I haven't seen you put out any long form content for recruitment. You've got the shorter posts, 100,000+, couple lines. How come you haven't gone the long form route?
I've been thinking about it. When you say long form, meaning like long videos like this?
Videos, sales letters, like just, anything that paints the story of, I was frustrated and doing this, and then I found Dave and all of this changed for me, like that kind of narrative.
Yeah, I definitely should do more. I did that one. Remember, I did that post and video about like being able to buy a home or an apartment in New York City.
Right.
That was fairly long. It was kind of like almost like a long sales letter. And then that got a whole bunch of positive and negative sentiment on LinkedIn and Facebook.
Great.
And then I made it into a video. I basically like read the post as a video maybe 3 days later or something. And that was like I think that was like a 3-minute video, not crazy long form, but like longer than, like a 60-second video.
Yeah. Okay. So we got to address this. Will, you always have an open invitation to the show. You are always a welcome guest. If that hasn't been on your radar, like absolutely within the next couple episodes, let's bring you on. Will Boyd. That would be phenomenal.
Yeah. Tony has been saying it for a while. We need to make it happen, Will.
We'll talk about fractional CEO stuff. We'll talk about our CFO. I want to make a connection. I didn't realize this wasn't a connection. Will, I've got somebody to connect you with on LinkedIn, certified financial planner. I thought you guys already knew each other. I had no idea. So, this show brings people together. I think that'll be a great connection for you guys.
Synergy. What is synergy?
All right. So let's pivot just a little bit.
Okay.
Let's talk about some stuff that's going on, valuations, acquisitions, like what's going on with the business. I actually, before I turn it over to Dave, I've been obsessed with ChatGPT. I talked to, using the voice feature, chat on the drive home the other day. I was like, hey, I've got this business. It's a physical therapy clinic. We're doing this much in revenue. We're doing this, all these things. I said, but I really want to build a business within my business that I could then offload and sell as a standalone business. I said, I've got 2,000 square feet. I've got exercise equipment. I've got all of these things. There used to be a fitness franchise called Curves for Women. Mm-hmm. I said, how can I build a business like Curves that I could then package and sell without interrupting my physical therapy business? And we went through this whole thought experiment, which I've done a bunch of times before, but I just wanted to do it again, where we said, look, if you're doing 400 to 500 new patients coming into my physical therapy clinic every year, a bunch of these patients are perfect candidates to join a independent exercise program, 2 or 3 classes a week, group workouts. They pay $100 to $300 depending on the time slots that they want to access. And we build it into I think we were looking at a $250,000 revenue per year for a single owner operator, who then I would sell that business to as a multiple of profitability. But I would keep my physical therapy practice. Like, I'm literally just building a business in my business and selling that to somebody who would then come in and operate that business. They could pay me rent. They would obviously get an SBA loan, or they would just pay for the business with, their own money. I was like, why aren't we doing this? We could spin off billing companies. We could spin off marketing companies. We could spin off exercise stuff. There's so many things we could do within the business structure we already have. But what have you been looking at, Dave, for valuations and business ideas?
Yeah, so speaking to a couple owners recently, I can't really say where, but we'll say in New York State somewhere. Some of the great things I'm hearing from these owners are and historically I was always complaining about owners having unrealistic expectations. But some of the most recent owners we're speaking with about a potential future deal, I love and I respect when they have some level of realistic expectations. So a couple things. One is valuation, right? So once we find out, all right, what's their adjusted EBITDA, what's their net income after their add backs, because many of these owners have personal items on their business books. They have their personal car lease that has nothing to do with the business on the business books, their family cell phone plans, all that type of stuff. You take away that stuff, it's hey, let's find the net cash flow, the net income of the business. And then, so whatever that number is, okay, what's that number? We got to agree on that number, first of all. And then it's well, what, depending on the size of the practice, what's the multiple? Is it a 2 or a 3 or a 4? or a 5x, like it, and that's all subjective, unfortunately. Like that's where like the owner, like, are they motivated to exit and sell? Are they motivated to do a deal? Or are they like just looking to get the highest dollar amount and they'll try to hold out for a higher multiple? Because basically the adjusted EBITDA number times the multiple is going to be like the purchase price. But then we got to agree on like, okay, well, how much of that money do you need? Like one thing is one thing. How much of that money do you need at the close? Do you need 90% of it? Do you need like just 50%? And like the other 50% could be deferred as seller finance, or 25% deferred as seller finance in the future, where we pay that out starting, 12 months after the acquisition, or starting 3 months after the acquisition, or whatever. So that's one thing I'm seeing is, I don't know, maybe there's some correction. Maybe I don't know. Maybe there's something in the environment that owners are getting a little more. They're a little bit more understanding in terms of de-risking the deal. We're looking at the deal and we're saying, hey, how much of the practice is wrapped around you? That could be risky. So one owner we're speaking with, like, they said they would be fine with staying on board for 12 months during the transition. I'm like, amazing, because and we said, like, hey, in the first 6 to 12 months, like, we don't have an initial plan to even rebrand it, to change your name. Like, we want to keep your name. We might even keep your EMR, your medical record. We don't want anyone getting spooked. We want your therapist to stay comfortable. We want your front desk staff to stay comfortable, meaning like not spooked and scared. We don't want them to leave. These are all the major components of risk and the challenges with deals, and not so much change evaluations, but it's like having these practice owners understand how these deals get judged, how they get value, how they get evaluated, how they get assessed, and risk is one of the biggest components.
Yeah, I think you bring up a good point, which is like, say the thing that you're scared out loud and see where it could go. Like, if you're actually worried, if I buy this and the owner bails, then I'm nervous about the actual value of this. Then say that. Be like, if you leave, what's the deal? Oh, I'll stick around for 3 years. Is that the deal breaker? Because that wasn't a problem for me. So bringing those things up, I guess, would feel scary, but I feel like you're saying it probably is better just to get those things out of the way, because
has to.
Yeah, right. I mean, especially deals this size, if that's a deal breaker, say it out loud. Otherwise, because like deals like this don't pop up all the time. If you've gotten to that stage, say it to prevent a deal breaker.
So Dave, I got a question. How does the acquiring group, let's say the owner says, yeah, I'll stay on. I have to assume a couple things going into this. One, the owner is probably not doing a great job anyway. Like, the fact that the owner is looking to sell, unless they specifically built the business to be sold, the owner is probably not doing that great of a job anyway. How does somebody who's acquiring, whether it's a private equity or a private sale, how does that acquirer say, okay, I'm going to keep this owner on, but then you realize the owner's doing a crappy job. I need to get rid of the owner. How do you address those issues?
Yes. We have the option in the purchase agreement, in the future potential purchase agreement, to basically terminate that contract, the employment contract, at any time. If we do a deal, there's going to be like the one purchase agreement contract for like the price and terms of the actual practice and the duration of them staying on in the transition. Depending on the deal, that could be put into the purchase agreement contract, or it's going to be in the employment agreement. The employment agreement is going to be like, hey, Tony, we're going to agree on a certain salary or hourly rate for whatever. And it's going to be, here's your roles defined. Like, it could be the social media stuff. It could be, you're still going to do shockwave treatments. You're still going to do X amount of social media published videos per week, or whatever, like really defined items. But at the same point, at the same time, it's kind of like, we could, if we wanted to, we could lock you into, let's say it's 12 months or whatever, where if you leave, then there's going to be some penalty that you would have to pay us. But we would be able to terminate that employment contract at any point if you're, and you wouldn't, Tony, but other owners, if they sabotage the practice, if they start, talking bad about the new buyers to the team members, and you're going to dirty the water and cause issues, then the buyers absolutely would want to get rid of you. And maybe there's some, financial penalty there, but the buyers would want to have that ability. However, that's why with all the calls and the meetings and, building rapport and building a relationship with these owners. That's why it's vitally important, because you have to have so much trust and relational capital built up to understand, like, is this person, and it's no different than like we talked about interviewing and recruiting. It's no different. It's just like making sure that this is the right person.
I think such a great opportunity right now for somebody would be, we know that there are people who are great at going from 0 to 1, meaning like you start from nothing and you build and get those first couple clients. We know that there are people who are great at going 1 to 10 and 10 to 100. I think there's such an opportunity for somebody to just go out into the market, make great connections. Somebody like Jimmy, who's got connections with universities, connections with students, connections with new grads. And then you just go out and kind of create this incubator where you just start practices from nothing. You build them to a certain level at scale, package and sell to the next level, who's going to then take that, put it into private equity, put it into something else. What are you nodding your head about?
Because this is what my PT school roommate's dad did.
Okay, tell me.
Like, he started PT practices in Northern Virginia where they lived, and he had the most boring names. I hated them. When he would tell me, it was like name of town,
local town, physical
name of town therapy, and it's the dumbest idea, except it's the brilliant idea because everyone thinks of it. It's better for Google. He was smart. He only did what he needed to do, and he would do this. He would open a PT practice, I think, with a co-owner. I'll have David or his dad, because David lucked out. Both of his parents were PTs. I mean, he was like PT, lineage. And his dad and his partner would open a clinic. They'd get it to profitability, like they'd build a business, and they'd recruit. Probably, I'm guessing, and I want to speak for Hadi, but like thinking like who here is going to be the ideal person. They, I think, for the most part, wanted it to come from within. And I think he wound up selling several of the practices to Marymount grads, because Marymount was a school, like you just said, right down the street. So I've got a feeder school. So it's always going to have somebody who wants to stay in the area and work here. But I think he was always sort of looking like, who's going to want to take this over? And I think they were smart enough to know, like, that kid's probably got no money. How do we structure this deal to make sure? And he was never, I mean, in what I've seen, all those businesses have continued on with those owners. So it was never like, I'll just sell you something and good luck. They sold them something that was on the way up, but they didn't want to be here from 8 to 50. They were like, we're good at 1 to 5, and that's what we want to do. And then he'd sell it. They'd go 20 miles down the street, right? Far enough away where they're not competing, and open another boring PT clinic, this town physical therapy. And they did it again. That'd be a great episode. I should get David and his dad on here to talk about that, because it was so boring that it was brilliant.
Yeah, the mindset of somebody who's starting something to sell, trying to find that peak value where there's enough meat on the bone that a new buyer coming in still has acceleration and still has growth.
Yep.
But you can get in and get out relatively quick. And really, for the right personality, like, that's the best part of the whole thing.
Yes.
I'm 25 years in. I have so much history and baggage that's weighing me down. But if I could get in 3 to 6 months, accelerate growth, recruit, grow, market, do all the fun stuff, and then sell by 12 months, amazing.
So, and I don't want to say too much because I get told things sometimes and I'm like, is this for public consumption or is this for Jimmy? And just for future reference, don't tell me anything monumental that you don't want on the podcast, because I might screw up and just say it, right? But I do know someone who's doing something like that. So what I'll do is I'll text them and be like, hey, is it cool? And I'll just bring them on. This way they know that they're, streaming. But I believe this person that I know is trying to solve that. Essentially, let me take all my business knowledge and starting, and you're like motivated, but you don't know where to begin. Let's go into this together and share the risk, but you get the reward.
I would love to continue to put messaging out about the out-of-network practices in New York City. Hey, if you're watching or listening, let's all band together. We're fighting for the same leads. I was just thinking about this the other day. I was like, I'm spending money on leads on Google ads and Facebook ads and all that. Like, why don't we all band together? Let's figure out maybe the first 12 months, maybe these owners pay me and my group like some, almost like Joey and Robbie, like I don't know, some coaching. Not that I want to be a coach or a mentor or whatever, but like, you pay us and like, but you in 12 months, if we don't love each other, then we don't partner. And But we bring our playbook and our best practices, and we're like, hey, we're like buying these leads, and let's say someone's not the right fit for us. Like, why wouldn't I want to refer to someone else? Or like we refer to a brick and mortar. I'm looking at Google Maps right now, and I won't shout out any names of practices, but there's a ton of practices nearby. Like we get a lead, and like sometimes there's a physical therapy office on that person's block, literally on their block. And it's like, do they even know that office is there? It's crazy, right? So like if one way, like portfolio management of practices, like if we banded together, if we had some co-ownership, we share best practices, that could be a way where there's cost savings. There's immediate cost savings that money drops to the bottom line.
You're beautiful minding it. Did you ever see the movie Beautiful Mind?
Of course.
He's in the bar and there's 5 guys and they're all trying to compete for the blonde. And he's like, wait, what are we doing? If we all just actually work together, we wouldn't be competition. Although, if you want to math that, he wound up with the blonde. So he was like, I have a crazy idea. What if none of us went for the blonde except for me? And then we wouldn't compete. And they were like, good idea. And then he left with her. Like, that was a brilliant move because he sold that.
Playing chess.
Playing checkers when they were playing chess. So wait, what are you saying? Like, you guys, instead of being like, and we'll use like New York, this was like the 80s, instead of being competing crime families, you guys come together and form this big crime family. Like, instead of competing, let's just carve this up and figure out how to do it together, because together we can compete with big franchise places in New York, like
yeah. So I mean, ultimately, it can't fully happen. There's a couple ways it can happen. One is the USPH model, right? So they buy 70-80% of a practice. The owner keeps 20 or 30%.
That's formal.
That's formal. Or there's the IPTA, which is another way. I had oh my gosh, drawing a blank. The owner knew. No, well, he's kind of doing something similar, right? Similar. Ken Gazzardo in New Jersey. So he created it's like a joint tax ID. So it's one tax ID. These other practices can plug into it, but if they sell to some corporate or whatever, they can leave that at any time. So it's like they're in the same tax ID, so they can have better negotiating power with insurances. They can have cost savings with the same EMR. You have to use the same EMR. You have to use the same payroll and HR system. If you're joining, and this is public, like Paul Vidal in South Jersey, my mom goes to his office.
I know Paul.
Specialized physical therapy. He's got like two or three clinics. He joined that. He joined Ken Gazzardo's IPTA. But if he were to sell to us or anyone else, like if he sells, like they can leave that. So I don't want that. I want like the lock-in of like the equity. I want the equity exchange so that we actually can have some scale. But I'm not saying like it has to be 70 or 80%. It could be 20 or 30%. It could be 40 or 51%. But the challenge is like a lot of these practice owners that are independent, they went out on their own. They took a lot of risk and they want to, collect all that value. They want to make all the decisions and all that. So then it would be like a bunch of mini CEOs under our, group. And that would be, or that could be a challenge. So I'm floating this right now.
I'm going to use, here's what I'm going to do, because I don't know if I fully understand it, because I think we're making it up as we go along in a good way. Like we're just designing this. I'm going to take the transcript of this episode and be like, give me a comparison in another industry that does this. Cause it feels like a co-op.
No, I mean, it's the same as, Confluent buying Motion, or it's the same as USPH buying, the majority of practices. Yeah. Yeah.
But,
formal.
Going back to the beginning, though, I was starting the mindset of, okay, Dave's talking about leads. Why are we all paying for leads separately? Why don't we come together? Effectively, like Jimmy said, make a co-op where we say, hey, let's put this money in and then we'll share the leads that come in.
Like round robin?
What?
Like round robin?
But I'm saying sharing everything, sharing how to interview and recruit, how to like best practices of everything, how to, train your front desk staff, all like our playbook. So the only way we would want to open the kimono to other owners that are in the same zip codes is if there's some equity exchange. Justin said.
I think we're getting there. It's like a franchise model where you are franchising the marketing machine. So you come together for a specific geographic area, but the practice owner still keeps his core business privately owned. This feels like, have you guys ever heard of what Uber drivers do near airports? This is genius and brilliant.
What?
Have you heard about this?
No.
They sleep in the cell phone lot.
No. They all go to a bunch of Uber drivers would go to the cell phone lot. A bunch of Uber drivers will go to cell phone line and they'll know 5 planes, big planes, are landing in 28 minutes. And they'll just yell, everybody turn off your Uber, like turn off, you're not available. So now supply goes down and demand goes up because 5 planes are about to land. And these guys are like, they're like in the Wolf of Wall Street. They're like, hold, everybody wait. And
but there's got to be some guys that turn their phone on early, a few seconds earlier.
But what they're doing is they're driving the surge pricing up because everybody's baggage
genius.
Ding, 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 ding. Where's the ride?
Gangster.
One dude watching it rise and rise. And when it hits a certain value, everybody goes green light and they all make money. So they're gaming the system. Like, are you mad? Don't hate the player, hate the game. This is something similar. We're like, let's band together. We're actually not competing. We are, but we aren't. Like, there's more than enough to go around. Why are we fighting each other is what I feel like I'm hearing you guys say.
So how does a company like Zillow, if you're a realtor and there's 1,000 realtors in your area and you pay Zillow, doesn't Zillow just spit out the incoming lead to everybody in the area and you're paying for those leads?
Yeah. I don't know. I don't 100% know, but that would sound like that would be a reason to use it, right? Like Zillow's like, hey, come on board because we know what we're good at, which is traffic, like SEO and traffic for a particular site. Like, right? Like instead of me going to Keller Williams and Century 21 and having to pick my pony, I go to Zillow. Well, number one, I check the value of my own house every once in a while. I get my Zestimate. And then, you're looking at whatever things are because it's a good resource. They understood what game they were in. Zillow did anyway. I think there's something there.
Yeah.
I think New York would be the place to try it, right? If you're going to try it, because you'd have more than enough people to sign on or jump on board.
All right. So before we wrap the show, did you guys see the long form sales letter post that I shared and kind of the iterations that I shared? I think it was yesterday, related to a service where the therapist goes out, meets the patient at the home after they've been discharged from the surgical center following a total knee replacement.
I saw the video of your heart. Yes, I saw that.
Okay. So here's the deal for context. Anybody who's still watching, anybody who's still listening, if somebody hires me to do this, I will do this. I am not interested in doing this. This isn't something, but I'm putting it out.
I don't want to do this.
Yeah, I'm putting it out in the real world. Like this is attached to my business Facebook page because what I'm trying to do here is I just want to show other clinicians what's possible. I don't really care. I don't care if somebody hires me, doesn't hire me. I don't care if it does well, doesn't do well. And basically what I've been doing is sharing the process of, okay, I've got an idea. I go to ChatGPT. I start to iterate on that idea. I feed, again, Gary Halpert, Alex Hormozy, Roy Sutherland, I feed these names, Seth Godin, and I say, give me back something that they would have created. And I won't read the whole thing, but to give you an idea, the context, it's under my Total Therapy Solutions business Facebook page, which is blowing up this month. It's doing awesome. It's at 1.3 million views over the last 28 days on the whole account, not just this post, the whole account. But it's, okay, quote, I know she'd say not to spend the money, but I can't let her do this alone. That line is because we know our moms and dads would not want us to spend the money to hire help, hire an aide, hire a therapist to come do something. They're not going to spend the money and they don't want us to spend the money. So I said, I want you to target the adult children of the ideal client, knowing that the client doesn't want to spend the money, but the kids will. Then it said, if your mom or dad is having a total knee replacement soon, you're probably already feeling the pressure. You've taken time off work. You're trying to manage everything the hospital throws at you. The discharge instructions are a mile long. And through it all, one thought keeps running through your mind. Quote, how am I going to get them from the car into the house without something going wrong? Right. And so then the rest of the post goes through and it shares, the drama around the people at the surgical center will get mom or dad into the car. But once you get home, how are you going to get them out of the car, into the house, into the recliner? So for $499, some of which might be covered by insurance, and I mentioned that, but worst case scenario, $499, a therapist, me, will meet you at the house when you arrive from the surgical center, will bring the confidence and the peace of mind to know that an expert is there to help get mom or dad out of the car, up the stairs, into the house, and into the recliner. And that person is there to answer your questions, because once you get in the house, that's when all the questions kind of come to your mind. So I put it out there. I think the post, like in the real world, out in the wild, it's got a couple thousand views, and that's all organic. There's no paid money behind it. So I'm doing a bunch of these. I did one for runners, running assessment. Again, I don't really want to do a running assessment, but I want to see how the ad performs. I've done a couple different iterations. We haven't had any takers yet, but I am seeing an uptick in inbound calls and messages from local people in this area who are watching our Facebook posts.
Read that ad again. I knew she wouldn't want me to spend the money.
Yeah, I know she'd
the first line is great.
Yeah, I know she'd say not to spend the money, but I can't let her do this alone.
Like that.
Go ahead.
That tugs on a couple different emotions, because like we've all felt that. I know she wouldn't want me to spend the money, but you're like, on what? And then do it alone. I feel like if you could get the word mom in there, it would be better, because I'm like, who's the she?
Yeah, very true.
And then the second thing I like about that is you don't think about how to get from the car to the house until you're sitting in the driveway. So It's like you're highlighting like, how'd you solve that? And people are like, hadn't thought about that. Right. Like that's sort of like how gently we get someone from their hospital bed to the door of the hospital, and how we're just like, good luck. Like it's so careful. It's like, wear these grippy socks and be so careful. And there's 49 people looking at you. And then you get to your driveway and you're like, good luck figuring the rest of your life out. And you're like, hey, did you think about that? And the answer is always no.
Great.
So I know it's kind of hard to see on the small screen, but this is inside my Facebook business page. This post I posted, I think 48 hours ago or so, 252,000 views. The one that I was just talking about, 2,600 views. We've got a couple like 25,000 views, 16,000 views. These are all within the last week. I've got Blaze Pod. I've got New Fit. I've got the reactive step trainer from Biodex. Like the organic reach on the business page right now is just outstanding.
Going back real quick, that headline, Tony, the emotions of it, it also makes the son or daughter, I believe, feel guilty. Like if you don't use this offer, if you don't use this service, if you don't take you up on this offer, you would have guilt as the son or daughter. By default, you're saying if you don't use this offer, you're allowing your mother or father to do this alone, to go at this alone, which is genius.
What kind of a son are you?
Yeah.
There was another one. I'm trying to find it. It basically shared a narrative story where it was like, it was raining and she was crying and talking about how mom was stuck in the car. What?
Double moisture, raining and crying.
But saying how mom was stuck in the car, and I got the call and I rushed right over and I helped them because they didn't know what to do. And the pain and panic had set in. And these are, yes, they're made up by ChatGPT, but these are real life situations that people are dealing with, real pain points, real urgency. Is it the perfect solution for everybody? No, but for the right person, what?
It's the I don't care about the guy who can fix my leaky sink until I'm ankle deep in water. It's not my problem until it is my biggest problem.
Even with the runner. So going back to the runner, I was telling ChatGPT, I'm like, look, runners will run through the pain. Runners don't care about pain. In fact, they run better when they're in pain because it makes them feel like they're pushing themselves harder. So every running ad that I see about avoiding pain, I just don't think they're effective. So I'm like, I want you to create an ad that talks to a runner who is happy to run through the pain, but their concern is they don't know if running through the pain is going to make the condition worse.
There you go.
They don't know if they're making a mistake. They don't care about resolving the pain. They want to know, can I keep training through the pain?
Well, that's
and
great.
then what I did was, go ahead.
Can I run my next race?
Yeah, exactly. So I shared a real life story of a real life Dave telehealth visit that I did about 2 weeks ago for a runner, female runner. She was, she had just run an 11-mile race. She was experiencing like sacral pain that she never had before, bilateral, symmetrical, no radiculopathy, like pretty basic, small frame female runner. So, we went through all of eliminating all the potential problems through the call. And I said, look, it's not a deficiency in strength. It's not a deficiency in range of motion. You don't need to do all the garbage that you see online. Your deficiency is in recovery. You need to eat more, sleep more. We talked about recovery. We talked about, okay, now you've got 3 or 4 more races coming up. Are you going to run all of them? You probably can and just run through the pain. Probably going to be fine. Nothing suggests to me that you're going to break or tear or damage something. I said, but if the next one isn't as important as the second to next one, let's skip one, or let's use one of them as a diagnostic to see. Let's play with some different things and see if we can figure out what's causing this sacral pain that you're dealing with. I think it's a ligament problem, overuse, undernourished. But I took that story, put it into ChatGPT to create a post that was focused on the person who is happy to run through the pain, but just doesn't know if they're going to tear something. If they know they can run with pain safely, they're going to run with pain. But if they're going to break something, they need to stop.
This would be great for someone like Doug Adams.
Yeah.
Because if Doug could explain the clinics how to do this, how to do the marketing part, then at the end of the rainbow is I don't know the answer because all I've seen is telehealth come into my clinic where I have this, $40,000 camera system, because all you did was you made that runner feel like she was an Olympian at Olympian. You were like, all right, if you got an A race and a B race, maybe we use the next race, which is your B race. Like it's up there, but it's not your A race for the season. Let's use it as a diagnostic. It's like, okay, you understand, right? Because how many PTs were just told, like, shut it down. Rice, baby, rice.
Don't do that. Yeah.
Right. And every runner is going to go, okay, and then keep running, or most runners, right? And I can say this because I used to be a runner. That's what they'll do.
All right, guys. I took us over. Let's hit parting shots. Dave, kick it off.
Parting shot. Last week, Jerry Durham reshared one of our recent episodes on LinkedIn or something, and I don't know, we were talking about technology in the future or whatever, and I clicked on it and I started rewatching the episode. I don't always watch or listen to my own stuff, especially on my show. But just it's fun. It's entertaining what we do. It's great. It is. It's fun during, but then sometimes watching the recap, I can see why we get people commenting live and watching it and all that. And it's great. I've done episodes on my show with folks where I would never go watch or listen to that episode again. Just, I wasn't enthused with it. I wasn't excited from the conversation, whatever. So, not that I'm patting myself or ourselves on the back, but
pat, baby.
This is why we're still doing this after how long? I don't know, almost 2 years or something.
Yeah. Jimmy.
Parting shot would be put the audience first, and it's hard to miss. I know Simon Sinek says you start with why. I just want to politely disagree with Mr. Sinek. I know he's a TED speaker and a multiple bestseller. I think if you start with who, you get to why faster and you get to a better why. So not that I'm disagreeing, I'm yes-anding Simon Sinek.
All right, guys, parting shot. Go support the channels. Go support your favorite therapist. Dave Kittle Show, PT Pintcast, Learn Medicare Billing, Concierge PT, or Pain Relief.
Hey, it's Dave Kittle. Are you a healthcare business owner or physical therapy practice owner who is looking to figure out your succession plan or exit strategy? We might be able to help. And in fact, we may be interested in acquiring your practice. If you're interested, you can reach out to me. Shoot me an email at dave@conciergepainrelief.com. That's DAVE@CONCIERGE painrelief.com, or You can call me at any time, 646-781-8884.